public comment comes up first.
Get us our agenda then.
Thank you.
And if they win, then I'll take a chocolate.
Down the rail trail. I helped. Join in Jim and run the air conditioner.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:00 p.m., so we will begin our public comment session for July 19, 2022. This is public comment for non-agenda items only. There are public comment forms back on the table over there, so if you have public comment, please fill that form out and bring it up here. I'm gonna mess up. All right, up first we have Ms. Deetra Menser.
Ms. D.
You can come on up to the podium, please.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Deetra Menser. I'm a resident of York, Pennsylvania. I live at 255
You don't have
Kirkland.
to. You don't have to give us your address.
Okay, the reason I'm here, the neighbors in our block are concerned with the alley behind our homes. People throw a lot of garbage, debris back there. The other evening, I went down the alley and there was a piano in the middle of the street. And I called City Hall or the police about it. Someone came and they removed the piano, but they moved it up against someone's garage. It's still there. And we're just concerned because it's getting worse. There's a lot of traffic back there. And we also want to see about having the alleyway paved. So could you give us some information to see what can be done? That's it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have debris in the alley, and then also I'm going to put on your.
Well, for the piano, because that was behind my mom's house as well, because Miss
All
Brenda,
right.
you know, you guys share the alley.
Right.
They did come pick that up.
Oh, they
So,
did?
yep, so thank you to Chaz Green. He made sure that they came and picked that up, so they
Well,
picked it
that's
up, I think it was
appreciated. Good.
Monday.
Good.
So it's out of there.
All right. Now, do I sit down?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to try my best to read handwriting.
Oh, that's Brenda.
Right.
Miss Brenda.
Miss Brenda Rice.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brenda Rice, and I'm a resident at 295 Kurtz Avenue. My concern is some of Deidre's. We not only have debris back there, we have dead animals and just different stuff, trees and bushes. People just seem like it's a dump, and we need it paved and cleaned up. And it seems like we as taxpayers who pay taxes and stuff should have our alley a decent way behind our yards, because we sit in our yards a lot. So that's one of my concerns. The other concern is elderly housing. I notice over there on Penn Street, where I was raised, right there on Cador Street, where they tore our houses down and didn't build any other houses. Now they're building other houses, and my concern is for the senior citizens of York, because we don't have that many decent income houses. The rents and stuff are anywhere from $1,200 on up, and a lot of us on Social Security can't afford this. So we would like something done about that and not put exclusive houses over there and put people from out in the county and stuff to come in and live in them. They are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. John Jameson.
Good evening. My name is Mr. John Jameson, better known as Brother John.
Good evening.
Born and raised in the city. Though I don't live in this city, like Frank Sinatra said, I left my heart in San Francisco. I left my heart in York, PA. And one of my concerns is, I grew up in the Parkway area. I operated a grocery store out there on Pershing Avenue called Brother John's Grocery for over 24 years. And one of my concerns is they have just opened up a convenience store, a Parkway convenience store on Parkway Boulevard. And my concern is that where it is located, children will be crossing Parkway Boulevard to attend this grocery store. And the speed limit is posted at 25 miles an hour. And I know just from living out there, I grew up in Parkway, and very seldom do cars even come close to obeying that speed limit. So my concern is that we take a look into that and see what can be done as a precautionary measure, because what I have observed is it's an accident waiting to happen. So I wanted to bring that attention to City Council, and you know how children are, and a lot of times they cross these streets without their parents. So that's something I would like the City Council to take a look at and see if we can do something to prevent a tragedy from happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Sharif Hamid.
Peace and blessings. I'm a York City resident. I'm a therapist in the city. Well, not just in the city, but the whole county. I'm a mental health therapist, and my concern today, along with others, is the Smoke and Chill store and others. Brother John mentioned one of the stores, but the main one is the Smoke and Chill store, which is located on the corner of Duke and Princess. It is a warehouse for drug paraphernalia and encouraging youth to use drugs. In my study when I was in North Carolina, when I first became a counselor, the study shows, especially through the CDC, that it's three common denominators with these stores. They're always open in black and brown communities. They're always within 1,000 feet or 500 feet of schools or places where black youth frequent. So the Duke and Princess, the Smoke and Chill, 2 blocks down is York High, 200 feet away is Vonnie Grimes Gym. The Parkway convenience store on Parkway Boulevard, where Brother John just mentioned, 2 blocks up is Devers Elementary, 2 blocks over is Ferguson Elementary, and then of course the Parkway store. And then someone could say, well, it's legal, it's tobacco, but over 45,000 black people die each year from tobacco-related illnesses. And the CDC reports that if this trend continues, it will kill more black people than diabetes, cancer, and accidents. And they said if the trend continues, over 1.6 million teenagers under the age of 18 will become chain and regular smokers, and over 500,000 of them will die a premature death from smoke-related and tobacco-related issues. So it's right there by York High. I don't know if they card, but if anyone goes in there, it's absolutely horrific what they have in that store, vaping, the whole nine. So we believe it's a concern because of the location, and it's a strategic placing of almost every single one of these places.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Jeff Kirkland.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys taking time to hear my concerns this evening. My name is Jeff Kirkland, resident of York City, 400 block of West Market Street. I'll try and be brief. I also want to reiterate some of the things Sharif said about this place called Smoke and Chill. I've been in drugstores and places in New York and places that don't have as much drug paraphernalia as this store has wide out in the open. And I'm not just talking about pipes. The state law defines drug paraphernalia as anything that's used to produce, conceal, consume anything related to drugs, such as clips, miniature spoons, various types of pipes. And if any of you have gone in this store, I mean, it's just like a supermarket for these things in the store. And those living in areas where poverty levels are high are more prone to become involved in drug activity. People who live in these poverty areas, they often do not have access to proper education. This defines us. Proper education, clean water and shelter, food or health care. And along with those basic needs is the instability of life and income. All these things come together in a complex relationship relating drugs to poverty. And I'm sure when these guys placed their store there that they did marketing research as to who's going to want to buy this type of equipment. They might not be breaking the law and all like that, but like Sharif said, there used to be laws, zoning laws, where you couldn't sell drugs. If you sold drugs within 1,000 foot of a school, your penalties might be doubled. But they put a sign up saying these things are for tobacco use only, but only a fool believes that. You can see what the things are used for. And if these kids would pick up one of these pipes or any of this equipment and go onto the school grounds, bam, they're out of school, for having drug paraphernalia, that's readily available. Now, our message to our children is incongruent with, our actions are incongruent with what we're saying. We want to do away with crime. Everybody has to agree that the drug activity around here is a large portion of the crime that we see in our community. And we say we want to get rid of it, but we allow these type of establishments. I don't know if we allow, and that's one of the questions I want to ask. What's the process for allowing these type of facilities to be located in our areas next to our schools or close to our schools and all? What are the zoning laws? What are those type of things that go on with that? Basically, that's about it. I'm just perturbed about this store up here. It's just like in your face. Our kids they're involved in these drug activity, and they don't have to sell drugs to make money. They're making money hand over feet, just by selling everything you need to package it. And not just pipes for smoking marijuana, but they have things like mannitol. Many of you probably don't know what mannitol is. That's stuff that they use to cut heroin with. Quinine, they use to cut cocaine with. They have everything that you could think of related to drugs and drug paraphernalia in the store. And I'd like maybe if the guy can come up with an agreement, to cut that kind of salmon out, because I understand they have some chicken up there that's not too bad, and that's a draw. Sometimes that's offensive to me. I said, why don't they just put a watermelon on that sign too with the chicken, to draw us in there and all, but that's neither here nor there. But my concerns is just the open display of this immense amount of drug paraphernalia there for our kids up in the area. And I was hoping, people could take a visit. I don't know if the city could do anything much now, because it probably end up like litigation or different things because they open up. And like I say, I did talk to the mayor about it. He was saying, the things they're selling are legal. But what message are we sending to our children, here, who they have the candy right there and the chips and all that sodas that our kids go in to see, and they got to walk right and bump into the drug paraphernalia to get what they want and all like that. So thank you for just listening to my concerns. I'm hoping that we as a community can come together, to make sure that these type of establishments are not allowed or not wanted in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Latice Brown.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm here. I'm a city resident. I live in Devers area neighborhood and Fireside. I do know you probably got a lot of complaints about the fireworks. I'm going to bring it up again. It was horrendous in Fireside neighborhood over the 4th of July weekend. So I guess I just have a question, and I know you can't answer, but just maybe a suggestion. Is there any way that maybe we can create an ordinance specifically for the aerial fireworks, that the ones that are most concerning to dry patches of grass in people's homes, the ones that shoot up in the air, specifically targeting those. I mean, the other ones are loud, but they're not going to as much cause fires as the aerial ones may. But can we create an ordinance just, for city residents, for our police department to start being able to enforce those ordinances? We had a meeting with Commissioner Muldrow, and his concern was that the police department can't do anything because of the way the laws are written. So if we can have an ordinance, like I said, that maybe specifically targets those aerial fireworks, and having our police department able to cite these people that continue to shoot them in the air. So my second thing in Fireside was this past week we had a lot of issues with the trash people. I know a lot of complaints came in about that too. Alleyways were completely covered in trash. And a lot of people were upset about that. And I just wanted to bring it up again so when we come close to consideration of contract renewal, that is taken into consideration. We understand they're stressed, their people are stressed, but we just would like that to be in consideration when they come up for contract renewal. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Mina Edmondson.
Hi, I'm Mina Edmondson. I'm a proud resident of York City. I live and work in York, and intentionally so. I am the director at Martin Library. I'm here today to thank York City for the support they gave us for our grand reopening and ribbon cutting and block party that have occurred over this last week. Thank you. First, I want to thank Mayor Helfrich and his staff for attending our ribbon cutting and being part of our human-centered design process, which began over 2 years ago, going through the library, helping us identify things that may need to be changed, helping us to clarify some of our ideas so that what we accomplished would help better meet the needs of our community. I want to thank the Department of Public Works for their assistance. The City of York's Health and Sanitation Officer, Tamika Rasko, answered all of our questions we needed for having our event outside and inviting people into the community. Officer Reisenweber and the York City Police Department for helping us to be able to close Queen Street so we could have our event and include our neighborhood in our block party. The York City Police Department, as well as the York City Fire Department, who showed up and filled those barriers and made the area safe for the attendees of our program. The talented and exceptional children that were there and the youth of York who provided the entertainment at our event, and also the dedicated adults who give their time and energy every day to support the children in our community. We often hear about the children where things have gone wrong. We never hear about the children and the families that are doing things right, and that the adults that are out there supporting these kids every day. And we need to continue to support those that are doing right and not just point out the things that aren't happening as the way they should be. I want to thank the hundreds of community members. We estimate we had well over 400 members of our community out for our block party, and many of them are in this room today, and I really do want to thank you for being in attendance and being part of what we were able to do. I have a dream for York. My York is not the York that gathers at some of our other types of events. My York is the people of this community who have needs that the library can meet, and I want to continue to reach that York. I want to thank our staff and volunteers who work so hard in the planning process and help us to realize the dream of a revitalized Martin Library. The spaces that have been taken away on the main floors that were formerly staff space are now space for our community. And if you haven't seen our new teen center, you are missing something amazing. You need to get in and see it. And our staff are excited now that we've finished the grand opening. We've almost finished the renovations. Windows are being done this week and next week, but they're now ready to serve our community. We want to thank the York County Library's leadership who engaged the local community leaders and community members, challenged them to imagine, discover, and connect with our libraries. And it's not just Martin Library, it's Crites Creek Library and Cartwright Benford Library. So there are more than one library in York County that is having the benefit of these changes and this growth in our community. And I want to thank you in advance to all the talented and skilled professionals in York who will connect with our youth and provide them with the opportunities to discover their interest and explore possible career paths through technology and hands-on learning experience. I cannot help a teenager use a 3D printer and to imagine the future that a 3D printer can be for their career. I just can't. That's not my skill. But we have people in our community that can take these technologies and put them in front of our students because they need to know if you want to do these things, there are paths you have to take in high school and in college, skills you need to learn. Even to be a skilled worker like a carpenter, you need to know how to measure wood and make sure that you're not wasting the pieces. You know, you just can't go in and cut willy-nilly. There are skills you need to know to be able to do these jobs, and we need our adults to engage with our students as they learn this. And if you haven't been in the library recently, come on in. We have self-guided tours that are available, and these tours share not just the history of Martin Library, but the vision for the future of Martin Library. And to me, the future is what we can do in the city of York and how we can help to change the future of our city. And thank you very much.
Well, Mina,
Thank you, Ms.
Mina,
Mina.
thanks for a great presentation and your passion, Mina. That was really awesome. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Mr. Seth Priddix. Not sure if I'm saying your name right.
Say, it's going to be tough to follow that one. But anyway, my name is Seth Priddix. I'm a York County boy. I develop real estate, and I'm here today to talk about two properties that I developed about 7 years ago. The one property is the Keystone Colorworks building. It's 175 West Gay Avenue, and then the Arctic Locker, the old Arctic Locker, that's 275 Jefferson Avenue. Since we've developed those, I think in 2015, we've always ran private trash service. We've contracted directly with, the trash hauler, whether it be Penn Waste, Republic, York Waste, etc. We received a letter. This was actually quite some time ago. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and we were working through some things with the city, where the city has an ordinance that basically requires anybody under 50 units to be on the city trash service. I guess this was never, applied to our properties for quite some time. And the reason I'm here is we had multiple discussions with staff, and they wanted me to come to kind of give a little history because we are going to be submitting a waiver to request or to continue private trash service. The one thing to understand is, from what I'm told, York City does not make money on the trash markup. We're willing to pay the per unit fee. I think it's $9 or $8.95 per unit, and then we would hire our trash company directly. But the Keystone Colorworks building, which is 29 apartments, that actually isn't even on the Republic bid. So that property was excluded. I know it was blighted for decades. So I'm assuming once York City did the bid that they didn't even include that property because it was, blighted for, I think, 34 years. It was abandoned. I also, York's a small town. We've talked to multiple other developers. I do think you should look into maybe modifying that ordinance. 50 units is a pretty high threshold, especially since the type of revitalization that's taking place, you're taking some, 20,000, 30,000 square foot buildings and converting them into, industrial apartments. And I feel that, the last thing York City needs is 30 toters, sitting on their sidewalks when it can be all, combined into one dumpster. Another factor is, my office is right up on North George Street. We manage and own about 500 apartments, all within probably 20 miles. When we have move-outs or when we know that, 5 people are scheduled to move out, we contract directly with our trash hauler and have an agreement that they come and pick up large items within 24 hours. So if I have 10 mattresses sitting outside, I call up my rep, they bring a truck, they load them up, and they're off my property. If I have to call, York City Public Works, and then they have to call the trash hauler, I don't know how long that's going to be, and then the next thing you know, I have just trash piling up. So I do think it is in the best interest of the city to look at modifying that ordinance, and I don't have an idea of a specific unit count. You can, discover that, but also we had talked about, providing a waste management plan, like saying, hey, I have this complex, here is my plan that's to equal or greater service. Do you accept that? And if they do, allowing us to, continue private service. So that's why I'm here. Next, month is when you'll vote on the waiver. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask him a question?
Those are all the forms that we have for public comment. Are there any other public comments?
There's a question over here. Are we allowed to do it? I just wanted to ask him.
You can come up to the-
He sounded pretty generous in what he said about.
Mr. Kirkland, you're going to need to come up to the
sorry.
mic. Thank you.
Sounded was a generous offer, what he just said about even though he was continue contracting with a private offer, you would still pay that minimum fee, that per unit fee, $9 or something to the city.
Correct.
But you didn't have to.
Yeah. And that's what they're required to do through the ordinance.
I thought that was
So
pretty generous.
we're glad to pay that city fee.
Thought that was generous.
Thank you.
You can come up to the mic. Please state your name.
How y'all doing? My name is
evening.
Brian Gooden. I go by Gito G's in the community. A lot of y'all know me. About a month and a half ago, of course, I'm a resident in York City. I'm a business owner. I'm a community activist. I've done consultant work for many businesses, including Martin's and YDR. In the last year, but I had a studio, as many of you know. So the problem is, I guess I was renting a space that was condemned and told to me by the city or by your office has been condemned since 2017. The thing is, it was never a way or to realize that it was a condemned building. Again, the city office codes told me that the person who I've been renting from has done this to 4 other people or businesses in the past. And it was no compassion for me. It was no sympathy. And the city showed up in what you call a New York second to shut me down. Nothing came out of it or seemed to come out of it for the owner. The owner was allowed to do this to 4 different people or businesses. And I'm just trying to figure out today, because if it happened to me and it happened to 4 other people before me, I'm sure this is a citywide thing here. All right. And my thing is, what is York City going to do? Or do York City care to do anything about the many residents and businesses who's being molested basically by landlords, shady landlords? How can these practices continue to happen, people continue to lose, and there's nothing being done? What can we do? Or I'm really here today to just say something need to be done, what could be done, and who concerned is it that something be done about this? Also, the fact that I was closed down like that, and that happened to me, and it was allowed to happen to 4 other people before me. Whose fault is it that I'm in this position? Is it the landlord? Is it mine because there was no signs to say it was condemned? Or is it the city who allowed this to continuously happen to the residents and business owners? I want to know. I would like to know. That's my question, and that's my statement.
Thank you. So we are in public comments. In order to stick to our time frame, we usually don't have discussions during public comment. I'm pretty sure the majority of individuals that signed up for public comment today, I've had conversation with. I've encouraged you to come to our public comment forum, because what happens with that, 1, it's on the record. 2, when you fill out our forms, and if you would like a response, you leave your information on the form so that we can respond. And then also at the end of the meeting, the mayor usually stays and he usually addresses your comments during his comment session. Okay? Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I thank you all for coming to our public comment session. We appreciate your engagement. We appreciate your involvement. And I hope that you do stick around for our legislative meeting. And hopefully at the end of the meeting, we can talk some more, and the mayor also can address some of the concerns that were brought to our attention today. We are going to adjourn our public comment session. And at 6:32 p.m., we're going to call our legislative meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Dennis,
Here.
Buckingham,
Here.
Rivera,
Here.
Washington,
Here.
Walker,
Here.
and
And
the
if,
flag is now over here.
thank you. If you are able to, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Now we will take action on previous meeting minutes from June 7th, 2022. Council, are there any changes that need to be made to those minutes?
None.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those meeting minutes are approved. We have a presentation from Mr. Brian Wade for Keystone Oral Histories. Mr. Wade?
Madam President, members of council, Mayor Helfrich, my name is Brian Wade. I'm a documentary producer. I've lived in New York for over 40 years. Former educator here, raised my family here. I recently, starting in 2017, I created an African-American oral history series that chronicled the lives of African-Americans that served in the military. The initial one was from Vietnam to beyond, from World War II to Vietnam. And the York edition of the documentary chronicled the lives of African-Americans that served in the military from the Civil War beyond Vietnam, and that's currently airing on PBS. So we've gotten a lot of response from that. We're preparing, and we've already started filming for our next documentary that's going to highlight the Underground Railroad and the abolitionists throughout South Central Pennsylvania. Each of the documentaries come with curriculum that meets what they call National Common Core standards and Pennsylvania state standards. As far as I know, no one's doing that combination relative to regional African American history in the United States, where you have the documentary and also the curriculum. I just want to give a brief, I'll sure give a short presentation. Most of you know, this is a video, but I won't play it. This is Vonnie Grimes, very beloved in the city of York. He served in World War II and was a statesman here. This is John Aquila Wilson. He served during the Civil War. He's from Woodbine, Pennsylvania, down near Peach Bottom. And he lived to be 101 years old. William C. Goodrich, he wasn't in the military, but he was a well-known abolitionist and businessman here in York. He was in the documentary. George A. Wood served during World War I. He lost his life, and just recently, he finally received his Purple Heart after 104 years. That was due to him after he served in World War I. Just received, they got a head marker and everything, just received that. Of course, you know the Kirkland family, they have a long legacy and history of military service. Mr. Jeff Kirkland was in the documentary where we highlighted his family. There's Vonnie Grimes again. William Lee Small was in the documentary. He served in the United States Air Force. Calvin Rice, when the young lady said Rice, I don't know, are you related to Calvin? Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, Calvin Rice lost his life in Vietnam. And according to the records, he was the most highly decorated York County veteran in York County, you know, in terms of serving in Vietnam. His brother, I think his brother's name is Woody? Yeah, Woody. Yeah, oh, okay. Yes, he was in the documentary. So that was as a result of the Veterans Affairs Department said, Brian, we've got to have Calvin Rice in there. Sandra Stockton, some of you may know Sandra. She grew up here in York and went to high school. And she had a very arduous beginning, but ended up attaining the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Army. She served in the Air Force and the Army. Minnie Green, longtime churchgoer, choir member. She served in the United States, various branches of the United States Army, Army Reserves, and she's known throughout the community for primarily in church circles, but she's one of those salt of the earth persons. She's always about doing what she can for the community. And former mayor of York, Mayor Kim Bracey, she served 10 years in the United States Air Force, and when she talked about her legacy in the military and in York City. If you'd like to see that, you can just actually look up Keystone's Oral Histories and Google it, and it's online where you can actually watch the documentary for free online. So just put in Keystone's Oral Histories and Brian Wade, and you can actually see the documentary online. One of the things, this is a video, but I'm not going to play it. This is the curriculum that meets what they call National Common Core Standards and Pennsylvania State Standards. Dr. Sherry Washington was the designer of the curriculum. I'm not going to read the curriculum overview. I know my time's limited. Curriculum has various component parts to it. They have curriculum maps. Here is the C3. It basically looks at 3 standards of academic life for students. So it meets all the benchmarks for a very quality-centered curriculum. Course outline, scope and sequence. Modules are like chapters. The IDM, Inquiry Design Model, that's a technique and a strategy in terms of enhancing the learning for the students. Danielson lesson plan format, that's just a format that teachers use to basically design their lesson plan. It's a format that's tied in with the curriculum. That's just more information. I won't get into that. This was an actual lesson plan that was done about Calvin Rice. I'm not going to explain because I don't have a lot of time. I apologize. And we break down the various stages and component parts of the curriculum. Compelling question, that's a question that sort of draws your attention. And what's the main focus, the main theme about what we're trying to find and talk about in the classroom? There he is again, Calvin Rice. This happens quite a bit sometimes when I present it. I don't know who's here. Somebody's family knows that individual. It happens so often. So we didn't forget Calvin. There he is while he was over in Vietnam. I think about sometimes it's like almost want to cry, you know, but it's important that we maintain our history. And I wanted to say to Councilman Revere, I've already reached out to various members of the Latino community. I believe it's important, ultimately important, that we also have a Latino oral history where we can have curriculum for schools. Because as most of you know, there's not much way an ethnic minority history is being taught in schools, and especially when it meets these kinds of standards. This is called a supplement now. You don't get credits for this generally in a school setting, but it can be used as a complement because this is still American history. Yeah. And I also tell people this has nothing to do with CRT. I understand the politicizing and the politics behind that. These people's lives aren't theories. These people actually lived and they participated in this community and made it what it is. So that's it. I did a pretty good job. Anyone have questions about this? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say on behalf of Lincoln Charter School, I'm sure Mrs. White
Yes.
believes that we actually did teach.
They're implementing that.
Before we get out of control, if you have questions or comments, if you want to come up to the mic, you can do so. And then Mr. Wade can address your questions. We'll see if council has questions first. Does council have questions?
Ma'am.
I don't have, I didn't specify email.
Okay.
Would you send that PowerPoint to our clerk, Diana Thompson, so she can distribute it to the council members?
They have, Clint has that.
Oh,
So
great.
it can be distributed. All I would say is that components parts of that are copyrighted. So I'd be mindful of.
Just so we have a chance to go through and
Okay,
read
yes,
it.
and you have a prospectus, but I know I couldn't get through this, but it has all of that information on it, and you're more than welcome to look at that. All I would say is I have been in contact with the Martin Memorial Library, and I think this could be a good augment to what you're doing in the library. Well, I want to respond to Lincoln Charter School. I did a broadcast on PCN, Pennsylvania Cable Network, and we did it at Lincoln Charter School, and it was seen all over the state. I did that in conjunction with Black History 365. They're a national organization, and it was dealing with the need for African American curriculum. But I always augment and say, it's a need for ethnic minority histories, whether it's Latino history, African American, Native American, or whatever other population, LGBTQ, people get a little nervous about that, but histories are histories. And as long as they're done tastefully and with respect, I'm open to doing that. So I'd say to other individuals that if you are looking to create an oral history series, Keystones is here for you. And we like to do that in conjunction with having curriculum. So I'm sure that's my time. And Madam Mayor, thank you so much. I mean, Madam Mayor, oh God. I mean, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. They're not gonna have me back. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Madam President. Oh my goodness. Dr. Dennis, thank you for giving me direction as far as making this happen. I meant Dr. Dennis. Oh my goodness, I don't believe I said that. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Council, we have some questions for you. Mr. Wade, we got some comments and questions. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to sit down.
I just wanted to.
I didn't. Oh God. Yes. Questions.
I just wanted to commend you for your work. Most definitely, as a person of color, the lack of education. Historical education to our young people is definitely lacking in our school systems and overall. And I just wanted to commend you for your work and to bringing it to light and bringing it to our young people so that they can know that they too are valuable and that they too can be successful, and then so that they can know the history of those individuals that went before them so that they know they have a great legacy to lead ahead of them. So thank you.
Thank you, because there's so many stories. One of the students, as they were teaching us at Lincoln Charter School, they said, that's my grandmother. She was in the military. And the research is out there that when people can see themselves in history and being taught, it enhances academic achievement. So I don't want to belabor that too long, but thank you so much. Yes, yes, anyone else?
So,
Dr. Dennis.
I just wanted to say thank you for taking those steps. We did have a conversation,
Yes.
and it was great to see you here tonight.
Well, thank you. I
Because it is important that we know where our culture, where we come from, and know who our ancestors are. That's very important, and that definitely needs to be taught within our community and within our schools.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here and doing what you had to do to make this happen.
Well, all I can say is York County has been very receptive to this. There's been a lot of major support in that we were able to get the curriculum into 4 schools at no cost.
Wow.
And that was from York County. And the curriculum is not $10, I'll say. But right now they're 4 entities. Yes, any other questions,
Yes,
please?
I appreciate the fact that you brought up the Latino aspect of
Absolutely,
this.
absolutely.
And I think maybe we can have a conversation after.
Sure, you have
to
my
see-
number in the prospectus and everything.
I do, and I
Yes.
appreciate that. Have you connected with Mr. Bobby Simpson?
Yes, matter of fact, when I first started and designed this, I met with him, and he allowed me to film on location at the Goodrich
Oh,
Center.
great.
So he knows me. We go back a long time.
No, only because he's building the African American History Museum,
Right.
and so this could be, I don't know, maybe a conversation.
Yeah,
that could be
well, we're always looking to collaborate, but I do respect people's autonomy to go in their own directions in terms
Indeed.
of how they want to shape their own
Indeed.
kind of history. So I think that's a very supportive way of saying that.
But we appreciate your hard work on this, and
Well, thank you. But I'm serious about that Latino or because
Absolutely.
I filmed Delma Rivera, and her father was the first Latino physician in York County, and but it was a small segment. But as you well know, it costs money to do that, but it's not absorbent. But I'm very serious because I'd love to see a Latino oral history and the captions in Spanish so people can see the curriculum in English and Spanish. I'm very serious about that.
Indeed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the public?
Yes.
Why it's so important.
Mr. Kirkland?
So very proud of Brian. It's why it's important for this. Many people commented on having it in our schools. It's not only just for us African American students to know about themselves, but for the total community. I'll tell a story sometime when I do presentations about a place called the Meeting of the Rivers. And that's a place in South America where these two small streams, one the Rio Negro and the other the Rio Salinas, and where they come together, small streams. And where they come together, they don't mix. The Salinas is a muddy brown river. The Rio Negro is a jet black river. It's jet black because you can see crystal clear water and see the soot on the bottom. But where they come together, they don't mix. And it's sort of like whites and blacks here in York. We've been together all this time where you don't mix. For 2.6 miles, they go together, and you can Google the picture. It's called the Meeting of the Waters, and you'll see how fantastic a picture it is. They don't mix for 2.6 miles, but when they do mix, guess what? They become the mighty Amazon River. So I'm saying, if we're able to do what Brian's doing here in our community, bring the Latino communities together, just think how great a community York could be with our history of solving problems and all like that. So it's very important. I'm very, very proud.
Thank you. And I always say I couldn't have done this without the historians here, Mr. Kirkland and Samantha Dorm and Scott Mingus and so many. Jim McClure. It was a collaborative effort, and I always say that. Yes, I have my background in media and things in that regard, but it was a collaborative effort, and I'm looking forward to this next documentary, but that's going to encompass 4 counties now, so we're expanding our scope. But I wanted to say I'm so glad that I met a member of Calvin Rice's family. God bless you. Oh, now I know who you are. Oh my goodness, I haven't seen people so long. Yes, okay, how are you? Okay, let me sit down for our
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wade, and thank you for all that you've done so far. And just for our community, council meetings, yes, we deal with our ordinances, legislation, but we do like to highlight the positive in our community. So it's as simple as what Mr. Wade did. He reached out, asked could he be put on the agenda to present. So just letting our community know that. Yes, thank you.
And you did a great job with the 10 minutes you had. Yes, you did. No, it was great. It was really, really interesting, and I'd just like to add that it's nice and it's great to hear that kind of history, especially these days because, young kids are into their phones and games and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And we have our pioneers like Ray Crenshaw and Lee Smallwood and so they're from my mom's generation, Jeff Kirkland there. So it would be nice to teach our young people this so that they can teach people as well. Because can you imagine if the knowledge that they could gain from that?
I did want to say one more thing. I almost forgot that. It's very important. We also created an African American Military Hall of Fame, and we're happy to announce that Sandy Walker will be inducted into the Keystone's Military Hall of Fame.
Which one?
Yes, her father. Yes, father.
My dad. Okay.
Yes, he served in the military during Vietnam, but he's done so much work, and he did so much work in terms of the homeless and homeless veterans.
Yes.
He will be one of the inductees into the Keystone's Military Hall of Fame. Pierre Ritter, who was a native of York, Pennsylvania, I served with him in the Navy, he was in the Army, and I served with him in the police bureau in Harrisburg. I answered directly, he was the chief of police. He's going to be inducted, several others throughout this region. So I just want to say congratulations for your father being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. All right, let me get focused again. Thank you again. Up next, we're going to have an ARPA update from the Business Administration Office.
I'm a little shorter. Hello, everyone. I am Kim Robertson. I am the Interim Business Administrator for the City of York, and I am here to give an update on ARPA. As you may know, ARPA stands for the American Rescue Act Plan. The city was awarded $35.3 million in ARPA funds, which I am pleased to report that we have received all of that. They gave it to us in half increments last year and this year, so we do have it all actually physically within the city's coffers. What I have provided to council is an update fiscally of an approved budget versus the actual year-to-date expenditures for ARPA programs. And I do apologize if I missed something. I kind of threw this together, unfortunately, a little quickly, but this is the type of reporting that I want to be able to provide to council going forward so that we can see the numbers in terms of what's been approved by council to be added to the budget. First of all, the couple projects that were done last year, and then also what came into the proposed and approved budget this year, and then the individual projects that were approved via budget amending ordinances throughout the year. So for those who does not have this in front of you, year to date we have, there's been a total of $5.1 million of ARPA funding that has been approved by council. Part of that was for last year in terms of setting up the start of the housing and eviction counseling program in the HRC, making sure that we were prepared to have auditing services for ARPA funds, our employee vaccination promotion program, and then also we used ARPA funds as a 10% match for a grant in the fire department. So not all of that money was, though it was budgeted, didn't mean it was expensed. So there was some of that it was originally budgeted and not expensed, so when we come into 2022, it then is still available to be used. And the reasoning for not being used was, starting the housing eviction program late in the year, we were unable to get staffing in before the end of the year, so then they didn't have any expenses. The other thing of note is going across here for the 10% match for the fire grant, we're still finishing up journal entries for the end of 2021, and so there is expenses that were originally put through our systems via fires, just kind of it's the 0000 none cost center that we have records of, that we are going to have journal entries to essentially move it out of kind of the Fund 10 basic bucket and move it in so that we can show that ARPA funds was used for this. So there's still a little bit of catch up with that, but we did only need $1,200 worth of auditing services last year, and then it has been approved for more budget to be available this year going forward for that. And then our employee vaccination promotion program, we had $40,000 budgeted, and we were able to shell out $20,276.75. So those are programs that did not roll into the new year. So essentially then we had the $20,000 that was budgeted for that program available to be reallocated into the new year. Then for this year, I've listed the projects that have been approved thus far year to date by council. To give an overall total, again, for those who do not have this in front of them, and I apologize for not having something pretty on the screen, we have budgeted $5.1 million total, and we have actually cut checks and spent money for $348,987.16. I did take note that there is a requisition going through our system at the moment for the it's for the $20,000 for the council chambers AV equipment upgrade. So there'll be another $19,000 added to that. So at this point in time, not taking consideration that we do have the ability to allocate about $10 million of the original 35.3 towards revenue replacement that the city can claim based on the Fed's guidelines that is separate from these programs and not included in here. Just real quick calculation, thus far we have attempted to allocate 15% of the money that was given to us, and we have actually expensed 1%. 1%, yes. So is there any questions about the numbers before I go into how we plan on expensing more of what's been allocated?
Any questions?
Okay. So we have been working to evaluate the program we have in place for Arpa at the moment and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. We have reached out to many folks who have been currently working with other third-class cities in order to get their program underway between making sure that obviously we're very concerned about what we're allocating this money for, that it meets the criteria that are in place for ARPA funds to be used. And then from there is also making sure that the money is expensed properly, that it's matching. Okay, we okayed this project and this is what we're spending the bill on. Does it match up? And then past that is reporting. There's quarterly reporting that the government requires of us to report back to in terms of, okay, it's been another 3 months. What have you additionally have you allocated money to? What have you actually spent the money to? So those are the steps along the process, including we've got internal projects, and then we also have several projects that have been awarded to essentially subcontractors or recipients of the money. So we need to make sure that they're aware of the reporting requirements and the expectations of the use of the funds that they have. So we are in process of, and based on council's request, we have an RFP that is being drafted that should be completed by the end of the week for the ARPA project manager, so that we can get them in place to work with us to continue to move forward this process. The other thing that we have done is that internal programs have been instructed on how they use our current accounts payable requisition to purchase order system in order to make the request, because the budget's already in place. They put the request in for, hey, it's actually this vendor that we're using. These funds that are in our budget associated with the fund for ARPA, is it okay for us to get approval before we initiate the payments? It's the same way that it works for any other funds in the city. It then goes through management, the supervised managers, directors. All requisitions come to the business administrator, and then depending on if the requisition itself is for over $5,000 or not, it goes to the mayor. And all along the way, we're double checking that, yes, this is an expense that we understand as being associated with the ARPA, the approved ARPA funding. And then, of course, it goes to the controller's office, and over again to the deputy controller, and over $5,000 to the actual controller. So along the way, we are double checking, and the project manager is going to be the one that even before the administrative assistant in the police department goes ahead and enters the requisition into the system, they're going to have supporting documentation that it's been reviewed by the ARPA manager and that it does meet the criteria. So that'll help all of us along the way. So we'll have, I don't know, is that quadruple? However you get in there, we'll have multiple checks to make sure that we are not issuing money out without it meeting the criteria. And then again, that comes back to having the ARPA manager to assist with the process.
Where are we at with the project manager?
The RFP is being drafted, and that it will be available to be issued out at the end of the week. We're working with Solicitor Sable to get that done.
Where's Ms. Baldwin? Wasn't she supposed to give this report?
Yes, she was unavailable for this today.
Okay. Because it seems like you're doing a lot of work. You got a lot on your plate. Don't get burned out.
Oh, I'm not. Got a quick lesson on delegating. We've got great people here that we work with, and bringing more great people in, and we there's plenty of work to do, and we're going to spread it out. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Why are we just now waiting until the 9th hour to check with other cities on how ARPA funds have been dispersed? Council has voted for those funds to be delegated where they need to be delegated at. Other cities have already dispersed their funding. Why is it that we are now just checking on how other cities are dispersing their ARPA funds? We knew that we were receiving the ARPA funds. Why haven't we been ahead of it so that we can be able to have a plan drafted ahead of time on how we can disperse this and get these monies where it needs to go?
This isn't the first time that the consulting has been happening, because we have been utilizing all of the resources available to the cities and counties and municipalities in terms of there's multiple webinars and that are hosted by folks that are experts in grants and grant management who are now working with the government in order to do that. What we have just done is taken a reevaluation of our plan and made use of outside resources to say, hey, this is the direction we're going based off of what we had learned before. We're a little concerned that we're stalling, and we want to make sure that we can make amendments to our plan so that we can keep going and move forward to get the funds spent and out into the public and utilized.
Can you provide us with an estimated time frame of when you would have this plan together and the funds will be dispersed?
Well, there's lots of pieces to that puzzle. The first is the RFP out so that we can get responses back so that we can have the project manager in place. In the meantime, we are, as I said, fairly recently has been given the internal departments the okay to go ahead to start utilizing our already in place fiscal system in order to start making requests to use the funds. So that's the majority of the funds that have been approved thus far have been internal. So from there, we're going to reach out and double check with the folks that are part of the external programs, which again, there's only a handful of them, to double check where they are in the process so that we can, again, get the funds out to them and so it's available to them. So this is a kind of stop in the line, let's reevaluate how we've been doing it and make sure that we're doing it the best way possible going forward. So timeline-wise, best we can is we're taking it step by step and to get it all out. Like I said, at this point, I've got a requisition in my queue that I just approved in order to get one of the projects done. So as soon as the departments can start entering in their information, and their requests, it's going to be coming through the system for approval. So I anticipate by your next council meeting, you should have a lot more actual expenditures in that column.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For the administrator, you mentioned that a RFP is going to be put out?
Yes.
So what happened, the last discussion at our last legislative meeting, administration decided that it was going to be a full-time position?
Well, I can comment on that. You weren't supportive of that. And so we looked back at it and determined that we wanted something that council would support. And, the question between contract, in this particular case, and I know we've had discussions about contract versus employee on a lot of different levels, particularly talking about residency and things like that, but this is either a short-term employment or it's a contract. You can really go either way with it because it has a finite lifespan. It's not like a long-term employee. So, basically we could do a salary plus benefits for a short term, or we could do a contract for a short term. You were pretty adamant about maintaining it being a contract, I believe. That's what I interpreted. I think that's what you said. Mm-hmm. And so I went with what you said, and we are going to issue a contract by the end of the week, or an RFP for the contract.
Okay. Thanks. Works for me.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next legislative meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022 at 6:00 p.m. There are no prior committee referral reports, so we will move on to our legislative agenda. Up first, we have final passage of bills and resolutions, and we have final passage of bill number 39.
Move to approve.
It has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from council?
None.
Any questions or comments from the public?
Not on that, but on that last piece, I would like to make a comment.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Let's see. Dennis?
Yes.
Buckingham?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I meant to read that short title. It was a bill amending the 2022 budget for the Health Bureau for the Family Planning Program in the amount of $100,000.
And that is so ordered. Moving on to final passage of bill number 40.
Move to approve.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from council?
Oh, I have none.
Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Okay, and that was amending the budget for the police department for capital equipment and repairs to the air conditioning units at the police station in the amount of $250,000. Dennis?
Yes.
Buckingham?
Yes.
Rivera?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes. And that is so ordered. Moving on to new business. These are introductions, so they will sit until our next legislative meeting. They will just be introduced. Up first, we have introduction of bill number 41.
So introduced.
Bill number 41, introduced by Aquila, Washington, a bill amending the 2022 budget for the Bureau of Health.
And that will sit. Moving on to introduction of bill number 42.
So introduced.
And that is also that would be bill number, what did we say? 42.
42.
Yes.
And that was introduced by Aquila, Washington, and it is also a bill amending the fiscal year 2022 budget for the Bureau of Health. There's various grants for both of those budget amendments.
Thank you. Moving on to introduction of bill number 43.
So introduced.
Bill number 43, introduced by Felicia Dennis, a bill amending Title IV Stormwater Management of the York City Codified Ordinances to make it consistent with the 2022 Model Stormwater Ordinance provided by the PA Department of Environmental Protection.
Next, we have introduction of bill number 44.
So introduced.
Bill number 44, introduced by Felicia Dennis. It's amending the stormwater ordinance of the codified ordinances to make it consistent with the what am I saying here? With the 2022 model stormwater ordinance provided by the PA Department of Environmental Protection.
Moving on to introduction of bill number 45.
So introduced.
Bill number 45, introduced by Felicia Dennis. It's amending the stormwater management ordinances to do the same thing as the other one before.
Introduction of bill number 46.
So introduced.
As bill number 46, introduced by Felicia Dennis, amending Title IV Stormwater Management, Article 938, Stormwater Management Site Plan Requirements to make it consistent like the other one.
Thank you, Latisse, for all your work, too. Introduction of bill number 47.
So introduced.
And she did do a good job. Oh, there she is. She did a fantastic job giving me these ordinances. Thank you, Latisse. Sorry, I'm jacking it up, though. All right, introduction of bill number 47, amending Title IV Stormwater Management, Article 942, detection and elimination of illicit discharges to the municipal separate storm sewer system of the codified ordinances.
And introduction of bill number 48.
So introduced.
Bill number 48, introduced by Felicia Dennis. And that is a bill amending Title IV Stormwater Management, Article 943, Enforcement of the Penalties of the City Codified Ordinances.
Okay, those are all of our bills that were introduced. Moving on to items for consideration of consent agenda. Is there a motion to proceed with a consent agenda?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, council, please review items 11 through 17. If there are any items that you would like to pull, please share those items or item. I just gotta remember. Any items need to be pulled, council? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve items 11 through 17?
A motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments from council?
No.
All right, I do believe we have representatives from Fulton Bank to discuss the short-term securities. So if you'd like to come up, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Bush, and I'm with Fulton Bank. I've been with Fulton Bank for about 7 years now, and from my understanding, there was a need to possibly have some management of some income that was generated or received from the sale of the water treatment. And what I do at Fulton Bank primarily is I spend most of my time working with short-term fixed income investments for institutional investors, such as municipalities, school districts, sometimes corporations and foundations. But primarily what I do is I work on a team that does strictly short-term fixed income investing for municipalities, and with regard to keeping you in line with the type of restrictions that you have for these monies. So as opposed to putting you in investments that are part of the S&P 500 or the general stock market, these are all short-term fixed income investments for you allowed to manage the principal so you don't lose any principal, and kind of a holding area as opposed to a traditional banking product while you decide what you may want to do from a long-term perspective with the funds. So what we do in order to keep in compliance with Act 72 and Act 10, we build these portfolios using short-term fixed income investments such as U.S. Treasuries, FDIC-insured brokered CDs, and as of 2016 in Pennsylvania, you can actually use a product such as commercial paper, which is an instrument issued by corporations for short-term debt, and they're considered cash equivalents. And the nice part about that, and I don't mean to get too far into the weeds because I know fixed income investing can be a little boring, but the nice part of short-term commercial paper is it provides a nice yield to clients. So what these portfolios do, and what I built in the sample, was simply a snapshot of what we might do with that money on a short period of time, ranging right now no more than 9 months because of what's going on in the interest rate market, and kind of allowing you to secure the principal, have liquidity based on what you might need to draw those funds down or what you ultimately decide to do, but then try to generate a greater yield than what you might normally receive in a traditional banking product like a operating money market or savings account or checking account. So that's primarily what we do with the CRIM team. It's the Cash Reserve Investment Management. It's individualized, actively managed short-term income short-term fixed income portfolios. So I don't know if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to kind of dive into the weeds a little bit more for you.
So you're doing this for free?
No, not at all. We are a bank, so I'd love to say we do that for free, but no, there is a fee associated with that. The management fee for this is actually 15 basis points. So it's based off of the assets under management. There's not a transaction fee that goes along based on the active management of the portfolio. It's simply a flat 15 basis points of the entire assets under management.
Sorry, Mayor, I tried.
So with this estimated, okay, I see
sure.
The mix. So we have anywhere from 3 to 9 months for the terms. and then the annual income, this would be, how would that be broken out?
So this was just a sample of what we might do based on where rates were at the day I put this together, which was the other day. So basically, it's made up of the commercial paper, the U.S. Treasury notes, as well as FDIC-insured brokered CDs. Now, that's not one CD. They're broken out individual names by $245,000 per name, because we want to make sure that you stay within the FDIC limits of the CDs. But what this is simply a laddered short-term portfolio. And then as those assets mature, we could either what we do with our clients is a lot of times they're going to draw the funds down. They may have a project, they may have something they need to access the funds for. So as opposed to just rolling that over, we make sure that we communicate with the client to, hey, you've had this maturity, this is what we're seeing in the rates, do you need to draw this down, or would you like us to reinvest that and continue that ladder while you're deciding what to do with the funds? So this particular portfolio, we had commercial paper. I laddered it out every so the first one would mature in 3 months, 5 months, 7 months. Commercial paper has a caveat. We can't go beyond 9 months in the portfolio, to keep you within Act 72. We also have to make sure that the size of each particular issue is no more than 10% of the total overall portfolio. It's just a way to manage that risk. And when I say risk, keep in mind, these are short-term fixed income portfolios. So from that standpoint, I hate to say they're risk-free, but they are about as risk-averse as you can get, because that's really one of the pillars of what we do is manage that principal. We don't want you to lose that initial amount that you put in there. And not to put the buggy before the horse, but let's say you were to go ahead and move forward with this, you'd get your first statement, and I guarantee I'd get at least one, if not 3 or 4, maybe even 7 or 8 phone calls saying, what's going on here? Why is this showing that I'm losing money? You're not losing money, but this is a rising fixed interest rate environment. So what happens is any short-term fixed income investment that we would purchase today, a month from now, if the Fed raises rates again, it's not going to look as attractive in the open market. So on paper, you're going to say, well, I'm losing par value. But as long as you hold these assets to maturity, you get your par value as well as you get the interest that you've earned on that over that period of time. It's just our statements, truth be told, can be a little confusing in that they show you a snapshot of what that particular asset would fetch in the open market if you were to call and say, we need all this money right now, we need to liquidate early. So the one thing I do stress with these types of accounts and a CRIM account is you almost think of your money in 3 different buckets. You have that one bucket that's your operating income. That's what keeps the lights on. That's what pays salaries. You have another bucket that's more for long-term investing, longer-term project. You're able to ride out any ups and downs in the market. And then you have this in-between bucket that you're not sure what to do. And that's where CRIM kind of steps in. It's that you don't want to put it at risk, so you want to manage that principal, but you also want to outperform what you get in a traditional banking product. So that's kind of where that's built in and why we ladder the portfolios to maximize interest rate return, especially as rates are going up right now. Sorry, I could talk about that for a while, so I might get far afield.
Does this have to be approved by council? And if so, who in the administration is working with Fulton Bank on this?
Dan Hebner.
You want to talk about your thoughts on this and why this could be a perfect fit for the city? Why don't you come up?
As far as a short-term investment vehicle, we have to maintain Act 72 compliance.
Just start over, please.
Certainly.
Thank you.
As far as a short-term investment vehicle, we have to maintain Act 72 compliance. Fulton's a bank we've done business with for many years, so it's kind of short-term parking for our money until Pennsylvania Economy League comes to a conclusion as to what we're going to do for longer term, and we put it out for bid. If we leave it just basically in a money market account, we're leaving money on the table. So this is a very wise decision.
Thank you.
Can I interpret this for a second, if I may? So I just did a couple numbers. You said 15 basis points, right?
Yes.
And that's equivalent to 0.15%. That's what a basis point is, right?
So, for instance, 100 basis points would be considered 1%.
Right.
So,
0.15.
Exactly.
So 0.15 times the total of $190 million comes out to about $275,000. The the assets that you hope, the income you hope to gain from your investments here, from your example, would be about 5.27 million?
Approximately, yes.
Right. So what we're saying here is that if we park our money over here, the expectation is that we'll pay them $275,000, and they're going to make us $5 million.
Exactly, based on the estimate, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from council? Any questions or comments from the public? Yes, sir. You can come on up to the mic.
So I'm not a banker, but it was like lathered with a lot of bank talk that I don't really understand. But what I am trying to get out of this is, I just had it. All right, so
I hate when that happens.
I was working all day and I'm sweaty. For real, we built a big pond today and painted it and all types of stuff, amongst other things. But it was actually for you. What was the question just now? Right before he came up.
With Dan?
Yeah.
Just his thoughts in regards to.
Yeah. His thoughts in regards to. So, yeah, that's what it was. So, the way it sounded to me is you don't want to leave the money stagnant, right? But it also sounds like you guys are saying depending on how the market flexes in the future. Is that true? Like, am I getting that right? Because you were saying depending on how the market goes up and down is the chances on winning and losing. Is that right?
You can come on up, yes.
So, and that's a great question. Quite frankly, I get that a lot. So with regard to the market fluctuations, so for instance, let's say you're invested in the S&P 500 or just a general like stock portfolio, what have you. You've probably seen it on the news where you see all this kind of fluctuation. The market's up 500, the market's down 500, what have you. This type of investment is strictly fixed income. So, and I hate to break it down this way, but quite frankly, it's rather boring investing. Normally at presentations, I'm the boring guy because it's this is not the exciting investment. This is a CD. This is a U.S. Treasury bill. So these are designed that if you buy it and let's say it's going to mature in 3 months, if you hold it that 3 months, you're going to get that full whatever you paid for it, plus you're going to get whatever interest you earned. Where I was talking about as far as on your first statement, it's going to look like you might have lost money based on what the Fed decides to do. If the Federal Reserve raises interest rates again later this month, and they think they will, what's going to happen is that fixed income investment that today hypothetically might pay you 2%, after the Fed raises, the same bank that would issue that would now probably offer that for 250% as opposed to the 200%. So the thing that I bought for the city of York a month ago isn't going to look as nice if they decide, hey, we need that money, Matt, sell that, we need that money back. So our statements take a snapshot of what the investment is based on that day and basically say, if you were to sell all of this today, this is what you would get. The only reason I bring that up is, quite frankly, it drives in a lot of questions in that if you hold a fixed income investment to the day that it's going to mature, whether it's 1 month, 2 months, a year, what have you, you're going to get everything you paid for it back, and you're going to get all that interest back. So.
And so is it a system in place?
You can, you gotta come up to the mic.
Why?
Sorry.
So I'm just trying to. Sure. I just want to know for my own good. So is it a system in place or some kind of tool we using to say in 3 months this is definitely going to happen, or are we just like guesstimating what the market to be? Is what I'm trying to figure out. Because you said you know, is fixed, right?
Sure. So with, I'll just use the hypothetical of a U.S. Treasury that's paying 2%. When we purchase that, we've basically taken the guesswork out of it. So I'm going to buy so much of this bill that's going to pay 2%. And when it matures, you're going to get that no matter what. In essence, you've entered into that contract with the U.S. government that upon the maturity of that bill, they're going to pay that. There's really not a system in place, so to speak, to see if it's going to fluctuate. It's simply how the yield curve. And again, my mother always tells me, explain it like you're talking to me, because my mom doesn't, she hates finance. But the yield curve is basically how much you pay interest. And I'm sure everyone right now is noticing you're paying more for everything because inflation's going up. And that's what's making the yield, the amount of interest that you pay go up. So as the Federal Reserve Bank, as they raise interest rates, the interest that you can get on a bank product, like your savings account or your checking, that's going to go up too. So that's why I was saying that anything we buy today, in essence, isn't going to be worth nearly as much a week from now if we were to sell it early. But if you hold on to it to its maturity date, you're guaranteed to get everything you paid plus the interest that was already built in ahead of time, if that makes sense. Exactly. And these are, I apologize. The question was, these are all short-term securities, and that's exactly correct. These are all designed to be short-term fixed income investments. Nothing is, again, the whole motto inside the CRIM, Cash Reserve Investment Management, we call it CRIM, the CRIM team. We're the boring investors. We don't do anything flashy. The most flashy thing we do is that commercial paper that I referenced, and even that is pretty boring. So it's designed to, you put X amount in, you hold it to maturity, you get X amount out. And then if you want to reinvest at that time, you do. If not, you pull that money out plus the interest that you earned. So.
You weren't boring.
No.
Dan was, but you weren't.
Oh, man.
I think the simple way to say this is this type of investing protects us from the volatility of the market on the money that we have on the short term.
Very much so, yes. And that way you can, because I understand there's a lot of discussion as to what to do with this long term. So this is a way to steward that money in that period of time to preserve that initial amount, and then, that initial amount plus a little bit more at the end. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Michael Walker, I just wanted to remind council that there is, with this kind of transaction, a Community Reinvestment Act that we need to also look at with the banks. That is a particular act that also requires the banks that have business or do business within these communities to reinvest back into the communities with loans, et cetera. So while we're doing and we're going over the numbers, just want to remind the council that there is a responsibility in exchange in this that is federally mandated.
All right. Great point. Thank you.
Did you want to address that?
Sure. And I'm by no means the CEO of Fulton Bank. Well, maybe one day, I don't know. But we do just that. We actually have a program. We actually do have a program that deals specifically with reinvesting and making sure we do invest in the communities that we service. So I'd be glad to furnish more information on that by all means for the next meeting, if you like. So.
That would be great if you could. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for items 11 through 17? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
All right. Dennis,
Yes.
Buckingham,
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes. And that is so ordered. Is there anybody here from the General Authority? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
To do the oath of office, right?
Okay. Well, thank you for those who are volunteering for those positions. We always appreciate you doing so. Okay, moving on, requests for future meetings. Looks like we need to have a discussion for a date and a time for a special meeting to consider passage of agenda items 3 and 4.
Does
So-
July, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
cut you off.
go ahead, no,
Does
that's fine.
July 28th at 12 noon work for at least 4 of you?
There needs to be a strong 4 because I'm questionable.
Well, yeah.
It works for me.
Okay, all right.
It works for me.
3 would need to be in person and 1 could be remote.
So we have 2. We have 2 so far.
I can be here.
That's 3.
Dr. Dennis?
I want to say probably not.
Oh, can you do it remotely?
I could probably call it.
I need a definite, not a
Yeah,
probably.
you need a definite.
You can or you will call in? You will do it, you will do it Zoom, you will call in?
We need 4.
Okay, it'd be a call-in, so that's for sure. Okay, so it's for sure then, right? So it's for sure, right? Most definitely. To call you. Oh. Okay. So, y'all drive me crazy.
Well, we're going to need
It'd be
to
like-
attempt to
it'd
find
be
another
like
date.
5 minutes. It'd be like 5 minutes. It'd be quick. As long as you can positively say that you will be available that day.
Yeah, I've got obligations at home. I thought this won't take that long. It's like 7:30.
If you want, I'll address yours first. You're like next on the list.
5 minutes.
Well, so you good?
What time, Madam?
1 o'clock?
1 p.m. Oh, well, this has noon.
I mean 12 noon, I'm sorry, I meant 12 noon.
12.
12 noon. So Betsy, I mean not Betsy, the other girl there. Okay, so so Dr. Dennis, you are a yes, call in, right?
Yeah, only.
Okay, so we all straight, we got 3, and you definitely. you
July
definitely-
28th, 12.
July 28th at 12
All right.
noon, right? Okay, everybody please lock it in your calendars now.
July 28th, 12 p.m.
July, Dr. Dennis, you got that down there? Put it in your calendar, please. Woo, I think we did it.
What's the calling number?
I'll make sure that everybody else will be here physically, right? The other 3.
Right, we have to have 3 this.
Okay.
All right. Okay, moving on to council comment. Any comment from council? Okay, administration comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. And I did want to yield to Councilwoman. Did you want to mention anything about the Goodridge thing?
Just to let everyone know that on August the 12th at 10 a.m., we will be unveiling the first African-American statue in the city of York and the county of York. Crispus Attucks in the Goodridge Freedom Center. It will be of Mr. William C. Goodridge. We invite everyone in the community to come out. It will be a great day. We are all very excited about that day. It's a very historic day for our city, so we encourage everyone to come out and see this historic day unveiling of Mr. Goodridge. It's time for him to come home.
Yes.
Nope, sorry. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for all your work on this. Brian, let me start with your item because I have followed up when this was occurring. I had asked this is a very difficult situation because the city of York cannot know when a property owner is leasing out property. I mean, it doesn't come through the city of York. So if the person was hit with a condemnation of a building and the tenant does not request a certificate of to be shown a certificate of occupancy, which is part of the training you get through getting a new business packet here through the city of York, or it's supposed to be, there's very little way for us to know that this is going on.
Right, you was there.
So, yeah, but how do I know if you've got a legal occupancy? I don't walk around with a book that tells me who has occupancy permits.
On more than one occasion.
Yeah, I know I was there.
Okay.
I loved your studio.
You used the studio and me too to help get votes. You used my name and
Actually,
council meetings to say I help you with a survey, and we're going around with a survey,
Yeah.
but I couldn't get your help with that at all, and I'm just wondering.
Well, you still have not
what
applied
happened.
for your. Okay.
Honestly, I mean,
Sir, this is not what this forum is for. If you want to hear my comments, I will give you my comments.
Okay.
So if we're going to,
This was.
so if there's going to be back and forth.
There wasn't.
No, it won't be no back and forth. I'll listen.
Okay.
So I was at your location multiple times, but anytime I enter an establishment, I don't check the certificate of occupancy. I don't know if people have gone through a proper procedure. So I could not have known such a thing. The instructions were now given. So to stay with the process with the landlord, I directed permits to follow through with the citation process for the landlord. However, the landlord had the space, or you had the space vacated, and the procedure says that they have to be told to vacate the space. If they do not vacate the space, then they get a fine. In this case, the landlord vacated the space and...
Vacated what space?
And the space of your studio.
I vacated the space. I was told to vacate the space by the landlord. The landlord is continuing to rent. And the city of York is working with at least one of the people to stay in the building.
Because that was the zoning where that part of the building was not condemned. That building, the part that is zoned.
What part? Wait.
The back part of the building is not condemned. The Philadelphia Street side of that building is not condemned. The Clark Alley side of it was condemned.
There's no Philadelphia Street side to it. It's not even on Philadelphia. It don't run to Philadelphia Street.
It runs between Clark. The north side of the building. The part that is closest to Philadelphia Street.
Right.
The part where Pedal for Peace is.
Right.
That is zoned as a warehouse, and it's being used as a warehouse for bicycles. Therefore, that.
When was it zoned as a warehouse?
It is a warehouse.
No, I'm saying, when was it zoned?
It is
Mayor
a warehouse.
Helfrich, I'm sorry. I know that normally what we do with this is that when the public has questions and the mayor wants to answer, is usually after the council meeting has adjourned, because, it'd be this back and forth here.
Mm-hmm.
So Mayor, if you could just address him after the meeting and we could just move on with your announcements that we do. Okay, thank you.
I do want to let people know, though, that it is very important that they're ever leasing a location, that they make sure that the person provides a certificate of occupancy. Because this is the exact situation that people run into when they don't follow all the processes of.
Well, that's funny because half of my building is on the north side. Half of my space is the north side, but my whole space is condemned. Is running like this. Parallel. This is the north side. Half of my space is on the north side. Half of the space next to me is on the north side. But if you move over this way, all of this space is legit. But if you move over this side, all of this space is condemned.
Brian, he's going to talk to you after
All
the
right,
meeting.
I'm cool.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So the point is, please follow through and get everything that you need when you're having a business, when you're renting from somebody.
Question for that.
Yes.
Is there a way that the city could provide a public list of condemned properties? And then
I mean,
that way.
You could, I don't know if that would be a legal thing, is Jason? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's publicly available information. If somebody were to come into the office and say, can you let me know if 123 King Street has a certificate of occupancy, they can say yes or no.
So we'll look into whether we can compile a list. It's hard to compile a list of things that are unknowns because, like, for instance, in this particular case, the zoning was an issue because the warehouse was being used for something other than warehousing. So the thing that actually triggered this whole issue was a zoning determination needs to occur to determine if that use is allowed in this residentially zoned area. It has been predetermined to be a warehouse and therefore, and has always been a warehouse.
I think this was triggered by a Facebook post.
That was what made people aware of something going on in that building, yes.
Right. So does the city do public awareness or public, I just had the word.
Well, I just see Ms. McFadden came in and she handles a lot of her and Nancy handle the new business packets, right? Would you like to do a quick advertisement for how to register your business? Can you come up to the mic?
Like a public service announcement. I think the city has put those out via emails or even Facebook posts.
Well, she does a lot to get the word out.
That could relay the message to our residents or people that are going to rent something that may be not legal or may be condemned. It's just to get your answers before you fall into the situation is something we can share with the public.
So my name is Sheree McFadden. I'm the Economic Development Specialist. So I work in our Department of Economic Development. I work alongside of our business owners and community members and a lot of our landlords and property owners. I'm not 100% sure of what the gentleman's issue was here this evening as I walked in as he was at the end of him sharing it. However, as our office pertains, and I'll just address, you asked about a condemned list of properties. Our Department of Permits and Inspections would have a list of properties that were condemned. I think the public is able to submit a right to know to get that information. But they're also, when a property is condemned, it's posted. The reasons for condemnation vary based on what our ordinances are and what the zoning for that particular property is and the uses allowed in that building. Typically, if a property is condemned and if it is not able to be occupied, meaning it did not get an occupancy permit, meaning it is not safe or have been inspected and approved as safe for anybody occupying the space, then it could be condemned if it's being used for use other than it's zoned for. So if something is zoned as a warehouse and it is being occupied by people at any point in time coming and going, then it needs to be inspected and approved as an for occupancy of use. So it's a certificate of use and occupancy, most likely from what I'm aware of previously of this situation, is that he would need a certificate of use and occupancy, which would require different conditions to be met for him to have people occupy that particular space for that particular reason. If a property is condemned, that means they've probably not had it inspected for that particular use, for that particular reason, for that particular time. And that wouldn't be necessarily on the tenants, it would be on the owners. When they are leasing out commercial spaces, they are responsible to know what their space is zoned for use. If it is commercial and you want to use it as residential, you have to come before Nancy, who's our zoning officer in the zoning hearing board as well. If it is, and vice versa, if it's commercial and you want to be used as residential, if it's mixed use, commercial on the bottom, residential up top, any change in the original use of a building has to go before and be applied for and approved and voted on.
Yeah, and Sheree, I think that's very helpful. And just so people know, that, I mean, there's a remedy for this, and the remedy doesn't have anything to do with the city. In a situation like we heard about tonight, that individual who was renting from somebody who put forward that this property was legal to be rented, and it wasn't, that person can go after that individual civilly. So that there's a remedy there for that.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily, our permits, our our deputy director of permits and inspections, he issues our condemnations. Again, it's posted at the property, but for a list of vacant properties, you can also contact our fire department. If they are registered, they should be registered with our fire department. And again, condemned properties, the owner is made aware, and usually of the conditions from which it became condemned. And it doesn't necessarily, when a building is condemned, it doesn't mean that it's in horrible condition, it's falling apart, or doesn't have utilities. It just means that that use may not be approved for the safety of persons on the premises. So if it's not safe, and they determine the safety by if it has been inspected and approved for the safety of people and residents or customers, whoever are coming, the same as all of our businesses have to pass. When people come into our businesses, they have to be approved with a certificate of occupancy for anybody to occupy that space for its determined use.
So just to follow up, something as simple as a warehouse may only need one door for a room, but to have people in that room, you need 2 doors. And, you know, you're not going to know that if you don't go through the new business packet and go and talk to people here at the city. If the emergency lights aren't working, then you're not allowed to have people in there.
If you don't have a fire alarm, they'll let you know if you have a fire alarm or a sprinkler system. When people do our new business packet, it is online at City Grows. On our website, and it'll give you a link to register your business that helps you to figure out the use of your building, if you can do what you want to do in that location, if you're allowed. And Nancy, when we go through our City Grows new business registration, it lets you know if the business you want to have in the specific location you want to have it in is permitted to be used in that location. If not, Nancy contacts you and lets you know the process by which you have to go through to get your space approved for the use you want.
Thank you. And we'd be happy to have discussions on possibly increasing the fines for landlords that are acting this way. There certainly, and again, we'll see what we can do about making a public list. But if there is say there's a store and it sits vacant for a while and the lights don't work anymore or something's wrong in there, that doesn't mean we have that property listed as condemned. It was just really kind of just sitting there idle. And you're still going to need a certificate of occupancy and an inspection before you take it from idle back to active. So a list is not going to give you where you can be and where you can't be. It will give you a list of actively condemned properties. And then those buildings, while posted, if a landlord takes the posting off the building, then that's the end of that. You don't know, it's not physically posted anymore, and we don't chase them around reposting. We don't have those kind of resources. So I hope.
Yeah, I think in this particular situation, apparently that landlord had 4 or 5 different violations with the city
and other tenants as well that didn't.
It was over many years, but this person does have a pattern. But the current ordinances are set up that when you catch them, they have a certain amount of time to vacate. If they don't vacate, then they get the fine. So we can look at rewriting the ordinance to give it more teeth. But right now, what happened here is that the landlord was told they were about to get a fine. The landlord got the tenant to move out, and the landlord didn't get a fine because that's the way the ordinance is written. So let's look at that, Jason, and see if we can add more teeth to that.
And
it's definitely a predatory action.
I would just like to concur with Councilman Rivera stated about doing public service announcements that could go over White Rose Community Television and other ways. As being an individual that used to work inside of the city, oftentimes when you're working inside, you think that everyone knows the things that you know, and they don't know the things that you know. What's commonplace to you to think that you would know how to do it. Someone is coming from out of town that would like to come and open a business. What may work in another city or state or county or even municipality here in York County may not work the same way here in the city of York, and they may conduct it thinking that they can do it the same way at no fault of their own, thinking that I can just go do this because I've done this in other place. But I do think it's always a good way to continue to educate our public and educate our community with whether it's a quick little commercial on White Rose Community Television, or even a billboard that says, "Hey, you want to open up a business? Here's the link." With Cherie on it or whoever on it, or no on
me
it.
on a billboard.
You know, something so people are aware, because the more information that's out there, the more readily available, so that we can stop on one end. Stop incidents like what occurred happening, and then I do agree with you that we need some more teeth in the ordinances, because we have several predatory landlords in this community that do this kind of stuff over and over again, and they get away and they take people's money, and then we're hard on the tenant or individual, but then we're not hard on the landlord, and it's just not fair.
And his background, like I know, and I can only say because I saw him leaving, but I know he's aware of the process by which to register your business for the city, because we spoke personally about this. And then on the flip side, for landlords, if you know, hey, I got to get a sprinkler system, you're using my building as this, and I'm not investing all that to make it this, as a business owner or a landlord, I'm going to say you have to vacate if you're using it for not a use that it is, and I can get somebody in here to use it as a warehouse or just as its purpose to be used. But I 100% agree, Councilwoman, as well as just out of our department working to make sure we're making people aware of these and working diligently so people know. Like I said, I've had personal conversations with 2 of the tenants of the owner of this building about how to get your business registered and make sure, and then we can help you find places that already know kind of what our practices are, already within not violating ordinances, and already within our ordinances, and already know how to be a landlord and conduct commercial tenants.
So with regards to this particular case, it started with, and we need to talk about this because it's important, and what we're talking about is great. But with regards to this particular case, he felt like there was a flyer posted, there was an assumption made, the city went and knocked on his door and forced him to close his business. The mayor had been there, I had been there, and he felt like he did not get any help, because of his relationship with the mayor and with me and with other council people. So there's a lot more to this particular story, right?
Well, let's be fair. He was instructed on that day.
And I'm gonna cut everybody off on this. We need to stop talking specifically about a specific case.
The process is.
If we want to talk about process, that's fine.
The process is a zoning determination, and that process has not occurred.
Okay.
Ms. Watson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nona Watson. I just wanted to say we are actually working on updating our website, and we are also working on public information with all of our bureaus, frequently asked questions, et cetera. So I just wanted to let you know that, and also want to let you know that with permits and inspections, whether it was the gentleman that was here tonight or anyone, they have to realize that there's only but so much permits and inspections can do. They are following the law. So it's up to everyone else to change it. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council.
So let me go back to the top of the comments, and I hope I got all of them. Just wanted to comment, the folks from Kurtz Avenue, I hope that you're following our complaint process.
We have.
Okay.
We have called the city.
Okay.
And everything, and nothing has been done. The alley has been like that. I've
Yeah.
been there 40 years.
I guess the paving's a bigger issue, but if there's a dead animal there, we remove dead animals. If there are things dumped there, we do our best to find out who dumped them. Because the city does not have the resources to clean up everything that everybody dumps. We try to do our best to keep it as clean as possible, but it's very hard to just go up and down all the alleys when we have so many inconsiderate people from inside the city and outside the city.
I've lived there for 40 years. I have yet to see a city truck come through there to clean up. Okay?
Yes. And what block is it? 300? 200. 200. I got it. All right. The next item was the establishment and on Duke and Princess Street. I just wanted to comment because we did have this conversation that to our knowledge, there are no illegal items being sold at that location. However, coincidentally, it was Mr. Gooden, who is obviously a little upset with me right now. He's the one that pointed out to me what some of those substances that are being sold in that store are used for. And since then, I have not shopped there. So that is one start. But when a government cannot do a job, the citizens have a right to be activists. And I cannot advocate for what you should do as the mayor, but I can say that activism is another source of civic duty, civic action that can potentially be taken when you are opposed to something. Letice, fireworks, we can't change what the state is doing, but we'll look at it. I don't think that we can do what you were asking for, but we'll look at it. And then, of course, to call Casey Dennis when there are issues with the trash. The last trash contract, we only had one bidder. So when you only have one bidder, you kind of get what you get. And trash is a local kind of thing. If the couple of local competing companies don't all bid, then you get what you get. So we will try to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they don't make a mess of our community, and we do that through Casey Dennis. So please reach out. You know the contacts.
The complaint was a lot of people were reaching out. We're not hearing back.
Okay. Speaking of trash, dumpsters. So I heard a very nice tale of what dumpsters could look like in the community. However, there are other issues with dumpsters, and that is when they sit there and don't get emptied, then dumpsters can become a worse menace than seeing trash cans sitting around. So I loved Mr. Predix's idea of having an individual plan that they could be then held accountable for, where we could possibly give waivers for less than 50. However, we know that if you're, I don't know how many 20-unit buildings we have around, but if you can imagine dumpsters that aren't on a schedule and aren't being maintained, that could be an equal problem. So I think we've had these discussions for a little while. I think that was the best suggestion that I've heard on that, is that we try and find out a way to have individual plans and then bring waivers possibly to council. Thank you to the library. Again, fantastic things over at the library. And Mina brought up the closure barriers, the water-filled barriers. So I wanted to bring this up because our public safety, or our traffic safety committee, came to me and basically said we cannot have any more public events using closing streets with just the sawhorses that we're used to using. And that's for two reasons. And the first reason I found a little bit not as risky, and that is the intentional people that drive into crowds. While it is increasing, I still think that's a fairly rare event. But what they said to me that made me even more concerned is that on our streets, probably once a month, we are having somebody high on heroin driving and causing accidents and just driving into things. And while we think with common sense that if we see a barrier, we're going to stop, somebody under the influence and nodding out behind the wheel is not going to follow what common sense dictates. So we are in a position right now of trying to figure out how to improve the safety for community events. What they first said is we couldn't have any community events unless we could use these water barriers. Well, we don't have enough water barriers, and it takes 90 minutes to fill every water barrier. It's very difficult. So I came up with the idea of using our city vehicles also to be barriers, because you can pull those city vehicles in, but we only have like 12 or 14 extra vehicles that are used 9 to 5, but then we could use in the evenings for community activities. So you may see at First Fridays or or the closures on North George Street or other things. When we have the vehicles available, we're going to be using vehicles as well. However, in that case, whenever we use vehicles, we have the keys with the police department so that if there is an emergency of any kind, the police department can move those vehicles, and if somebody's having a heart attack down the block or if there's a fire or something, we can move those things very quickly. What we haven't been able to do yet is determine things like National Night Out, when lots of folks all want to close their parts of the community all at the same time. So we are working on this. We are asking for patience while we work through it. We are asking in some cases for people not to close the roads if there is a park or some other place available that they can utilize. This is a very tough time, and we're trying to handle a new risk as best we can. It is our job to balance, in some cases, safety with the needs of the community, and we're doing our best to do that. I have authorized a Halloween parade to go on again this year, even though we will not be able to block every single intersection. We're going to do our best to make it as safe as possible. So I hope folks can understand that. So if you're applying for a permit to close a street and you're getting some pushback, this is what it's about. The streets have become more dangerous for pedestrians because of people acting with ill intent and those that are frankly just intoxicated, particularly on as I said, a huge increase in heroin use behind the wheel. So that's where we are on that, and that's why you may get a little more red tape when you're trying to close streets in the city of York. And I think that, were there any other comments that, Brother John, yes.
You missed the convenience store that opened up there on Parkway Boulevard, and that
yeah, and we will look at that with traffic.
That really needs to be looked at.
We'll look at that with the Traffic Safety Committee. I did mark that down. I'm sorry I didn't mention it.
Yeah.
I absolutely see that. So we can check. Pershing has a stop sign, but Smith doesn't, or do I have those backward? Yeah. Pershing has Pershing and
From
Parkway.
George Street to Pershing, right there by Parkway Boulevard, where the housing, but
Yes.
there's no stop signs or anything
Right, but the
there.
new convenience store is past that, right?
No, it's right.
Oh, really?
The car dealership.
All right, excuse me. So we normally, with our administration comment, we normally don't do this. But before it's starting to get out of control, are you addressing that, Mayor?
We will address that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Yes, no problem. All right, that adjourns our meeting for this evening. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for coming out.